Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Eastern Shore Undercover podcast, episode number 3. I'm your host, Earl Campbell, and I want to thank everybody for taking the time out of their day today to spend with me on this podcast. Lots going on over the past week, and this podcast is going to basically summarize everything that's going on, clear up some lies, some misinformation that's been put out there. So I'm going to warn you all, everyone ahead of time, this is going to be a pretty lengthy podcast. Some people said that our podcast was too short. Some people say it's too long. But I have no choice. There was a lot of lies that were put out there and we're told. And I want to make sure we provide everyone with facts and proof, so there's no question. Most importantly, about my integrity. And I think what will happen is at the end of this video, there will be no doubt on who lied, who told the truth, and where all this came from. I'm going to do my best to break it all down for you. I'm going to give you little screenshots of emails that were sent. I'm going to give you some screenshots of some FOIA requests that were sent. And I'm going to give you facts on everything that happened, so there's no doubt in anyone's mind. I know there was a lot of questions. A lot of people have been messaging us saying, hey, what is this? What is that? Why did this happen? And I'm going to put all that in this one podcast to clarify everything. Before we get started, do me a favor, smash that like button down below if you like what you see today. And if you want to see more content from Eastern Shore Undercover, do me a great big favor and click that subscribe bell. It means the world to me. It helps the page out a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. One more thing before we get started, I promised you all, I want to point out something. Last week, I met with our friends over at R&A Taylor Hauling and Roxy Bliss Designs. Great people. They gave me this beautiful clock right here. A lot of you guys were, saying that I look plain behind me. So, and my wife, she decorated it up. You guys really can't see out here, but she put, this is one of the awards that we got from the Lions Club. Mr. Dennis Sue, Miss Christine, and everybody over at the Lions Club in Willards. They gave us a community award last year, so we just put that up for direction. We were going to put my awards from the police department here, but we decided against it. It didn't look right. So, one more thing I'm going to do inside here. Look, you see that? Don't laugh at me about that. That's my grandson's duck. Excuse me. Guess I should turn it off before you all yell at me, huh? That's my grandson's duck. It's his ducky. So he leaves it in Poppy's office. And that's where it's going to stay. We may actually end up moving this around. I have a wall over here. I'll actually turn it so you guys can see it. So that's that's the wall. Get this camera back in place here before Mr. Shore Undercover yells at me. We may move the clock over there so that I can see it, because I'm always looking for the time. And when it's behind me, I can't really see it. So we'll see. See what happens. So let's jump in and get started with the past week. Like I said, we got a lot to cover. So let's get right into it. Originally, let's go back to the Tuesday night, actually. Before we start with that, let's go to Tuesday night. Wicomico County hosted a council meeting, and a lot of stuff was said in that meeting that I think most of us were shocked to hear, including myself. So let's start off with the fact that Wicomico County they had a council meeting. And in this council meeting was Sheriff Mike Lewis and the council. And I don't know this for sure, but I think Sheriff Lewis requested that. And it was to discuss the MOU that was signed by myself and Madam County Executive Julie Giordano. So if you have a contract and you have an agreement, an MOU, and you're going to talk about that, most common sense people would reach out and invite the two individuals, the two groups that were involved. And that would be Eastern Shore Undercover, which of course would be me, and Wicomico County, which would be County Executive Julie Giordano. neither of which happened. We were not invited, and neither of us were there to talk about it. A lot of people ask, how can that happen? Look, as we've seen with this county council, they basically do whatever they want. And it's everybody has chimed in and said, well, how can he talk about this? And why weren't you guys there? You'll have to ask them that. I honestly don't know. Originally, I had planned on asking the county executive, Julie Giordano, if she would join me as my first podcast guest today. And we were going to have the podcast. We were going to, throw some ideas back and forth and some questions that were brought up. But I started writing out what I wanted to cover and what I wanted to say. And I wanted to break down this council meeting, most importantly. And when I got to the end, I was like, wow, I don't want this to turn into a 2 or 3 hour podcast. So what I've done is I've asked her if she would come on the show. I sent her an email on Friday. Friday. And she agreed. She will come on. She's willing to come on the show. And we'll have her on here next week. We have a really, really, really busy week coming up. We're doing some media interviews. Going out, hanging with some of these radios. And we're going to reach up a radio station up in Baltimore. We're going to have a good time. We're going to have some fun. This last couple months, it's been so dry for us dealing with all this encryption stuff. We just want to put it behind us, move on, look forward to the positive stuff we can bring you with Eastern Shore Undercover. But I will keep everyone informed this week on where to watch, where to listen, how to tune in, keep you guys all up to date. So let's jump into the nuts and bolts of the county council meeting. First up, we want to address some of the comments. And of course, you had good old Shadow Hills folks there, who I'm sure are just loving the opportunity to cause more negativity at the council meeting. Are we catching on to this agenda yet? Where every week we're saying the same people at the county council meetings. Makes it look there's a lot of problems in Wicomico County. It makes it look like there's a lot of people complaining. But in reality, like I said, 2 podcasts back, it's the same old people causing the same old problems. And I don't think that'll ever change. So let's start off. Mikkel was there from Shadow Hills. And you've all heard me and read my opinion about some of these people at Shadow Hills. Not all of them, but some of them are just so far from reality. It's just mind-blowing to me. What she said in the comments was a perfect example of that. And I'm going to go over her comments here in detail. You guys are going to see me. I got 3 screens here, so I've got stuff up on each one of them. So I'm not really going to look too much at the camera today. And I'm not being rude or somebody said you need to look at the camera more. I'm just trying to address everything, and I have everything laid out on all 3 of my screens here, and I have a laptop over there. So you're going to see me looking around a lot in this podcast. But first off, the first thing I want to bring up and address is she complained about my hours of operation and about me taking time off to spend with my family. And I got to tell you, it was truly one of the most amazing, and just it blew my mind to hear her say that. I'm going to quote a lot out of this council meeting, but she said, I provide hours between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m., although he takes off large chunks of time during these hours to attend meetings, make podcasts, sometimes taking off an entire weekend. So I'm sorry, first of all, that I don't work 24 hours a day. Believe it or not, I do like to close up at nighttime so I can go to sleep. Or like tonight on a Sunday, I'm going to close up around 8 o'clock so I can watch Big Brother with my wife. I do have a family. I have a beautiful wife, 3 amazing daughters, and 2 grandkids that I love dearly, and I love to spend time with them. So family time is very important to me. I don't get to spend as much as I would like to. And while I'll never get enough of it, when I get the chance, I take advantage of it. And I close up and I do what I do with my kids, What's crazy to me is that a lady and her husband, and I know they have a family, they got a few children, I don't know exactly how many. Yes, she's complaining about me taking time off to spend with my family, which is totally hypocritical. Like, I don't even have words for it. That is the stupidest thing I've probably ever heard. You're going to complain about a man that wants to spend time with his family, a man that wants to go out, a man that has to go to sleep at nighttime. But this is exactly what the county executive and the county executive's office has to deal with over the past few weeks, past few months. God, maybe even longer. I don't know how long this has been going on. My response to that is seriously, it's jealousy. Plain and simple, it's jealousy. It's all it is, pure jealousy and pent-up rage that they spew out at each of these county council meetings. I can guarantee at the next council meeting, they're going to be there complaining about their dream of a park and how the county executive didn't bend over for their beck and call. It's just absolutely mind-blowing to me. And everybody that I have talked to outside of the Shadow Hills group all agree. They all think it's absolutely insane. It's crazy. Well, let's continue on. She went on to rant about me banning people. So I'm going to address that now. I addressed it kind of on the page. I've addressed it at least 100 times throughout the time we've had this page. So let's take a little bit of time and address this real quickly. If you walk into a McDonald's and you call the manager a bad name or you cause issues in his business, they're going to make you leave. Pretty simple, common sense. If you walk into Walmart and you cause issues, they're going to kick you out. Look, we've all seen the calls on Eastern Shore Undercover. We post them all the time. Johnny Jackass can't get along with somebody in a store, and they kick him out, make him leave. No different here. You walk into the Civic Center in Wicomico County, you cause issues, they kick you out. If you come on my page and you can't play by the rules and you do the same thing that you would do in Walmart or McDonald's or Domino's or wherever it may be, I'm going to remove you from the page. It's no difference. This is my business, and I'm not going to let people ruin it. You know, some of the things that I always hear, you're not entitled to anything here. You know, oh, you don't allow us to do this, you don't allow us to do this. It's a violation of my First Amendment right. Listen, I'm not the government. If somebody wants to go read the Constitution, go right ahead. The First Amendment has nothing to do with social media, and I can assure you, when they were writing the Constitution, they didn't say, well, can he say that on Facebook? Wrong answer, not happening. I'm a privately owned business, and I have a right to remove people from the page that I built, that I maintain, and I provide for this community. I'm not really sure why this is so difficult to understand. It's really not that difficult. If everybody is welcome here, as long as you can get along with everyone. And you don't have to get along with everybody, but you at least got to just be professional. She then goes on to talk about why she was banned and made allegations that I banned her because she voiced her opinion about trespassers, meaning dirt bikes and ATVs, the night before Safari at the Quarry. And that just is not true. We had a conversation on April 14th about the ATVs and dirt bikes. That day, she started a conversation by saying the following. Eastern Shore Undercover, I want to start off by saying that I have a deep respect for you and your work. I utilize your page every day, and I often consider our opinions and frequently find myself in agreement. And it ended with me giving her the truth, which she didn't like. She claimed there were 3 calls for dirt bikes at the quarry that particular day. And I explained to her that law enforcement had sent out at least 6 calls that I knew of that same day to a different road in Wicomico County. It was actually in Salisbury, which she didn't like. She didn't like me posting that. I tried to explain to her that the quarry wasn't one of the worst places for dirt bikes. They're everywhere throughout Wicomico County. Hell, they're everywhere throughout the Eastern Shore, state of Maryland. I mean, this is just it's something that we have to accept and get along. You know, there's not anything being done about it. But again, that's not a county executive issue. That's a sheriff's office issue, or whatever agency that is. So what I explained was she was entitled to her opinion, but the facts don't change. I constantly listen to these radios. If anyone wants to know what they look like, that's what they look like. It's a little pager. Everybody always asks me what they look like. I listen to these radios from the time I get up until the time I go to bed. And there are other areas of the county that are worse than Conley Mills, the work site, or quarry. If you notice, I didn't say park, because it's not a park, it's a quarry, it's a work site. So 2 days later, she was upset that I wasn't seeing things her way. She began getting angry and making outright lies on the page. I looked it up. She actually commented 29 times. It was very aggressive with people that didn't agree with her. So you've all seen me say it. I tried to say it to her. I said it 3 times. I said, Mikkel, we'll just agree to disagree. That wouldn't suffice. And she continued. After 9 messages that were sent that were in a disagreement, and I could see we were going nowhere, I removed her from the page. I'm not going to spend all day arguing with somebody. That ain't how I do it. I don't have time for it. I deal with way too many comments. Nowhere in the bylaws for Facebook does it say that I got to deal with people complaining and crying about stuff that's just not valid. Some people, you are never going to change their opinion. I don't care what you do. You're never going to change their opinions. And it was obviously and abundantly clear that there was no way I was changing her opinion. So I just removed her and get rid of the issue, and I don't have any more problems. Back to the council meeting, she went on to say that she met with me, which she did. We sat down at the Starbucks here in Delmar. And she explained that my post deterred her from calling law enforcement. And that's a flat out lie. She never said that at the council meeting, or at the meeting that we had with her. What she did say was she called the sheriff's office, and they got annoyed with her and told her that the issue was the sheriff's office. It's not Julie Giordano. So they're getting annoyed with her because she's calling the police or the sheriff. But that's not Julie. That's not the county executive. That's the sheriff's office. And I understand why they got annoyed with her. I'm not saying anything about that. I explained to her that the sheriff's office is open 24 hours a day, and they are there to make sure that the neighborhoods are safe. She told me she felt bad calling 911, and I explained to her that there's a non-emergency number that she can use. And she can, again, she said she felt awkward calling all hours of the night. And no time ever in that conversation did my post come up at Starbucks. Never. I came home that night. I removed her from the ban list because that's just what I do. 99% of the time, if I ban someone and they reach out to me and say, hey, this is what happened. We chatted out. We discussed why. 99% of the time, I'll take them off the ban list. You've all seen, there's many people that are on here that were on my ban list, reached out to me. Hey, man, look, we had a disagreement. This is why I did what I did. No worries. I was truly hopeful that we would make progress and stop all this negativity that keeps blowing up in the council meetings, which prevents other things from getting accomplished. But the very next council meeting, what do you guys think happened? You guessed it. Another witch hunt for the county executive. Look, I just don't want to be around that negativity. And I'm certainly not going to provide a service for someone that wants to just talk negatively about me. So when I came home and I heard all this stuff again following the council meeting, I got rid of her and I removed her husband. No hard feelings against them. There's other outlets out there. There's wonderful news outlets, WBOC, WMDT, WGMD, Shore Beacon News. There's other outlets that they can go follow and get their news from. I don't want them on my page. I don't need their support. Just don't want them on my page. So, moving on. Next up was a guy named Evan. And I'm going to get right to the point with him. He's an upset individual who was bitter over the fact that I had one of his rival business competitors advertise with me, and I wouldn't take his money to allow him to compete with them. I will urge you to go back and listen to what he says. Listen to his whole presentation that he did up there at the council. And just pay attention to what he says. A lot of times people just pay attention to what individuals say. You'll see that they're talking out both sides of their ass. At one point, he says he agrees with the encryption, saying it's dangerous to law enforcement. But then he turns around and says he thinks he should have the right to be able to hear police calls for the safety of his security officers. So what is it? Are you for it or are you against it? He then says that he's concerned about the safety of the officers. And a valid point. But who's going to worry about the safety of the citizens? You know, we have about 250 to 300 law enforcement officers in Wicomico County, between the Sheriff's Office, Salisbury City Police Department, Pittsville Police Department, Salisbury University Police Department, Fruitland Police Department, and Delmar Police Department. So I'm guessing 250, maybe 300 law enforcement officers. We have over 100,000 citizens in Wicomico County. Among those 300 officers, I would venture to say 95% of them do not care about the encryption and aren't afraid of doing their job with or without the encryption. It doesn't matter. So at what point do we start worrying about the safety of the citizens of Wicomico County? I've been asking that question for the last 10 or 11 months, and no one seems to have that answer. I'm all for officer safety, and you guys all hear me. I'm very pro-police, very first responder driven. But at some point, we also have to worry about the citizens in this county. So that's really all. He didn't say much more. He got up there, got his 3 minutes of fame, had people clap for him, fed his ego a little bit, and then he walked away. Again, he's bitter because I didn't take his money for advertising. Sorry, but I can do business with whoever I want to do, and I'm a very loyal person. If a business is loyal to me, I'm going to be loyal to them. And you know what? Perfect time to give a big old shout out to one of our sponsors. I want to give a big shout out to the fine folks over at Atlantic Tactical Firearms Trainers. Mr. R.S. Mitchell, Brian, Tim, Dave, the entire crew over there. A bunch of great guys, and they are your spot for world-class instruction, firearms training, NRA certifications. You need to get certified, give them guys a call. Find them down below in the banners on Eastern Shore Undercover. You can also find them on our weekly newsletter, and of course, they're in our Eastern Shore Undercover business directory. Make sure you tell them that Earl sent you from Eastern Shore Undercover. Now, back to the council meeting. Of course, after Evan spoke, you had a couple other people speak. You had Mike Goldberg, you had Miss Holly Campbell, you had James Darlene, Mikkel's husband. 3 more folks, all from Shadow Hills. They got up there, did their thing. They weren't really too far out there this time. Same handful of people again, speaking time after time. It's, I guess they say power in numbers. And that is pretty much it. That's it's their right to get up there and talk every week if they want. And I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying, it looks like it's a lot more than what it is. I would venture to say maybe, 10, 15 people each week that are there causing issues. So next was Miss Monica Brooks, and she's the president of the NAACP. Miss Brooks got up there and said, she was worried about transparency and privacy, which, really I find just very odd. Partly because transparency is what I've been fighting for, and it has sucked away my life for the last 10 or 11 months or however long it's been since all this encryption stuff's happened. But the privacy, here's what I have an issue with. How come this is just now being brought up? For the past, 50 years or so, people have listened to scanners. My grandfather, who was a well-known commercial crabber in Lusby, Maryland, would sit in his recliner every single night religiously. And he would have 3 things with him. He would have a Pabst Blue Ribbon beer because he didn't have much money, but he loved his beer. So he drank, pea water. He had his dog Boots laying at his feet, and he had a scanner. And every night, that's where you'd find him before he went to bed. And I can remember watching TV, and you could barely hear anything because of the scanner. He would have it turn up so loud, you really just couldn't hear anything. And he'd always say, you want me to turn that down? And I'd say, no, Pops. I can hear just fine. When in all reality, I couldn't hear anything. And I couldn't understand anything that was being said on the TV show. But anyway, my point is, people have listened to scanners for many years, and yet no one has said a word. No one has any issues. But now, all of a sudden, oh my God, people's privacies are an issue. Well, that's not an encryption issue. That's a policy issue. And here's why I say that. And I went over this in the press conference that Mr. County Executive had on Thursday or Friday. I don't even remember what day it was. Thursday. And Miss Hannah Chikini from WMDT, she had asked a question, and it was about, the privacy. And how I explain it is, when I worked in Ocean City, we had a specific channel. It was called Channel 4. I don't know if it's still Channel 4. I don't know if they still use that process. It's been many years. But it was a good process. And the way it worked was, if you're out with somebody and you're running their 1027, 1028, 1029, that all went over Channel 4. It wasn't put out in the public so everybody could hear it. You absolutely never put a social security number over the air. It always went on Channel 4. But for whatever reason, here in Wicomico County, we're behind the times. We don't use that system. And I'm not saying that's a perfect system. I'm not saying that everyone's going to adjust to that. But what I'm saying is, a social security number should never be put over here. Period. It shouldn't. But that's not a transparency issue. That's not an encryption issue. That's a procedural issue. There's a way to do it. You don't take away the rights of everybody else just because of one person that's being arrested or they're running their information. It just doesn't make any sense. So, and I'm going to touch on that in a little while. I don't want to jump around too much. So then we jump into the council comments. And Miss Shani Shields was the first one to start, and she started off talking about the San Domingo community, and then she went right into the tragic loss in our community. We lost 2 people in our community this past week. Both, very tragic. One was a senseless shooting. The other one was a tragic crash out on here on Route 50. But she took that and she tied it right in to not being able to get along with the county executive. And I just thought that was just totally disgusting. Play on people's heartstrings, get that sympathy going, play on her, and then just immediately, bam, hit the county executive. That's just so wrong. She pointed out that she doesn't approve of the court hearings that County Executive Julie Giordano has proceeded with. So I'm going to correct her just a little bit, and I'm going to say that the county executive won. But isn't that the county executive right? I mean, isn't that what it's there for? Isn't that process there to be used? If the council is overstepping their duties and making unethical decisions and improper decisions against the county executive, then it's her right to fight that. But we're not looking at it from that standpoint. We're only looking at it from the standpoint of, well, the county council doesn't want to see them count them court cases. Okay. Well, then stop doing what you're doing. Start playing by the rules. Because obviously, the county executive is playing by the rules because she's won every single court case. Not one. It's not like 1 to 2 or 3 to 4. She's won every single court case. So if you got one team A here, right here, and they're up like 5 court cases to 0, well, who's playing by the rules and who's not? It's common sense. So next was Shane Baker. He spoke about his experiences in law enforcement and his credentials, which is pretty weird. But let me tell you about my credentials. So Mr. Baker spoke about going through the academy. Well, I did that same thing. He went through a background check, and I did that same thing. Not only did I do it there, I did it for the Ocean City Seasonal Academy. I did it for the Ocean City Full-Time Academy. I did it for the Salisbury University Police process. I did it for the process for going to become my bailiff at the District Court of Maryland for state police. With each of those, I did a lie detector test and a mental health test. I had 21 years of training and in-service training between the time I left Ocean City until the time I was with a bailiff. And I got to give a big shout out to Mr. Moses over at the academy. He will yell at me for calling him John, but I love that guy. He's an awesome dude. Let me tell you what else I've done. I've passed credentials and had the process completed for the security measures and for photographing the inauguration 5 years back. I've passed credentials in the process security measures for the NFL. to be a sideline photographer. I've passed credential in the process of security measures to be an MLB photographer. I've passed credentials in process for security to be a UFC photographer. Should I keep going? So Mr. Baker isn't the only one that's going through a police academy. He isn't the only one that's going through a police process, mental health exams, polygraph, credentials, NCIC. I've done that same thing, Mr. Baker. I just don't do it now. Moving on. Next up was Mr. Jeff Merritt. And he started off with his normal praise and police speech, and then went into the talking about how they passed the bill to take away the county executive's ability to hold the car events in Wicomico County. And he claimed that it wasn't just because of Shadow Hills. But I think we all know that's BS. Mr. Merritt is attached to the hip. Anywhere you go, I've been seeing, Mr. Merritt with, the guy Joe Venosa that gets up there and talks all the time. I see him with Mr. Joe White. This guy's with everybody. So it makes you wonder, where do those associations and affiliations come from? And then we're seeing, the same thing when they get in there and all these Shadow Hills folks get up there and talk. And then we start hearing the same thing out of Mr. Merritt. So makes you scratch your head and wonder. But anyway, when he talked about the MOU, he said that not all parties and stakeholders were made a part of the conversation. Yeah, they were. They were. The people who were responsible for this county and the media outlets that were involved in the conversation, they were there. That's me, Eastern Shore Undercover. Any other media outlet out there that wanted to talk about it, there's others. And the county executive's office. Ironically, he was complaining about parties and stakeholders were not present. But I know I wasn't invited to that council meeting. And I can't speak for the county executive, but I would venture to say she probably didn't get invited neither. So, does it go both ways? I mean, they sat in there at council meeting and they held their whole little spiel, never invited the people that were involved and directed in the MOU. He then took a chance to post the county executive's private and personal Facebook post where she disagreed with the Olympics, the boxing match that took place, the women's boxing match. He went on to say that it was her personal page and she has the right to say whatever she wants. But then he felt it was okay to take a shot at her for her post in public and then call it the most disgusting thing he's ever seen in social media. Then goes on to say he's been on social media for 10 or 15 years. But if you go back a couple months, and it wasn't said just once or twice, it was said several times, and he doesn't really like social media. He doesn't use social media. Interesting. Because you can look at them on Pack 14. You can read them. More lies. But that doesn't stop there. He brings up the right to free speech, but then says, just because you have the right to say something, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. So, who makes that decision? Who makes that decision? Is it Jeff Merritt? Is he the one that makes that decision? The same guy that called me and had a conversation with me and told me that nothing gets posted about the council unless you run it through me. To which I politely told him he can kiss my backside. The same guy that told me that he's up all hours of the night, shipping things and talking to people across the country, overseas, and ordered me not to post anything about the council before running it through him. Yeah, that did not work. And since then, we haven't talked. We don't get along. I think he is absolutely fake. Nothing good to say about that man. Nothing at all. He then went on to talk about a recent meeting that he had and a question he was asked. And I can't help but wonder if this was the same Pack 14 interview he did with a group of county executive haters who were trying to shut her down. He said there's 3 reasons you can't get along with somebody. 1 was a lack of trust. 2 was a lack of respect. And 3 was a lack of communication. But I think what he forgot to say was the county executive just won't do what he tells her to do and won't act like the council's little puppy dog. So they got to get rid of her. Bottom line, she's not a puppy dog. She ain't going to bow down to him. She's going to stand up to him, and they don't like that. Facts. He then talked about checking your facts and went over all, his whole social media spiel again, blah, 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 blah. He says it every week, I also agree with him. Do your fact checking, no matter what it is. No matter if it's Eastern Shore Undercover, Johnny's page up the street, Joe's page down the road. Doesn't matter where it's at. You should always do your fact checking for yourself and make sure what you're seeing and what you're hearing is true. And that includes him. He proceeds with talking about the county executive and uses council time to encourage people to vote to remove the county executive. It stated he will be voting yes to question A. Again, this is all this council meeting was. It's all every one of them. That's all they ever are. Excuse me. They're just witch hunts to get rid of the county executive. But I'm going to continue on. Digress. Next up was Mr. Joe Holloway, and apparently he was upset over a comment that was made on our page, or another lady was upset. He states that himself and another lady are upset over the fact that someone said something that was out of line about him. Again, I guess he didn't agree with the comment, so it shouldn't have been there. No, it makes no sense. Mr. Hastings spoke then, and he brought up a very good point, saying that the media isn't the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago. And I agree with what he said, which is why Eastern Shore Undercover is so egregiously important. Without Eastern Shore Undercover, and I'm not going to toot my own horn, but, without us giving the community the local news, there's just no knowledge of what's happening in our society. And that's sad. I'll get into that a little bit more later and the reasons of why I feel that we're so important to our community. But some other comments were made. Mr. Cannon spoke, a couple other people, back and forth. And then Mr. Bob Benson, the county council's attorney, he spoke and broke down what he felt about the MOU. He went over everything and gave his opinion on the whole MOU, and that's what he gets paid to do. So then it was time for the man himself, Mr. Mike Lewis. And of course, he's got to put on his PR hat. And he thanked Mr. Benson for explaining and doing the research in the typical, PR movement of Mike Lewis. And the first thing I want to address is Mike Lewis saying that he was never contacted. No one from his office was contacted about this MOU. He knew nothing about it. He knew nothing about any of this. And I want to, direct your attention back to last week, where I told everybody that I did some FOIA requests. One of them was in reference to finding out about emails that were sent from the county executive to the sheriff, and then from the sheriff to the county executive. And I'm going to put that in here for you guys to look at. You'll see the whole MOU, and you can do the same thing that I did, and you can see it for yourself if you don't believe me. Anything that I do here, you guys want to fact check and you have a question about how you can do it, reach out to me, shoot me a message, email, Facebook message. I will get back with you somehow. Sometimes I'm a little bit delayed, but I promise I'll get back with you, and I'll show you how to do it. I have no issues. I absolutely have nothing to hide. Everything I do by the book. So, as you can see in this email, Sheriff Lewis was in the email he got from the county executive saying that she had some concerns. Mr. Paul Wilbur, county executive's attorney, he has some concerns about the policy and the encryption. And what you won't see is any response from Sheriff Mike Lewis. Nothing. Didn't respond to email unless he called her, which she addressed in her press conference, there's no evidence that he ever responded to anything. He also said that the county council was never approached about the MOU. Now, let's think about this. Every other week, for God knows how long, there's been a witch hunt that takes place at the government office building in the council chambers every other week. It's when they have their council meetings. Does anyone actually think she should go to them for anything that she doesn't have to? Should she waste her time going to the council, presenting anything at all that she does not have to by charter? Let me explain this a little more. The county council is not responsible for emergency services in Wicomico County. That role falls under the county executive, Julie Giordano. So why would she contact them about an MOU that has nothing to do with them? Anyone? Does that make any sense to anyone here? He then went on to say that she went into business with nothing more than a Facebook blogger. And I guess people, I don't know, I guess people think that's going to insult me or hurt me or, you know. It's an interesting question because I don't really know what you would technically call me. Maybe that's a good question for this week coming up. You know what? I'm going to write that down and I'm going to make that as a question. You know, what do you consider me? I've always said I'm not a journalist. As those guys go through colleges and write masterpieces where I just take, you know, basically a press release and I clean it up and post it on a website. And I do time from time. I'll write an editorial or whatnot. But for most people, it's just a clean up sort of deal. I take the press releases that I get, I put them into a program called Grammarly. I clean up the grammar a little bit. Sometimes I miss things. Cops miss things. People that write these press releases miss things. And I just try to clean them up, make them sound good. I do a little bit of search engine optimization to them just to clean up the wording to make sure they fit well with Google, Bing, the whole 9-yard Yahoo. But that's it. The editorials that I do, they're just written by me. You know, I don't consider that a journalist. I mean, it's no different than anyone else that wants to go on Facebook and write something up. Now, if you're talking about social media, I don't think it takes a journalist to say a motor vehicle crash took place on Johnny Jackass Road, you know, Mockingbird Lane, wherever it is, 2 people were hurt. You know, to expect real journalists, the types of Miss Hannah Cicchini, Miss Jordy Clarks, Mr. Steve Green, Mr. Dobson, Chris Weimer, you know, to expect those guys to do something like that would be, you know, it'd be disrespectful to them because they are much more qualified to do real cover stories, which is not what we pride ourselves on. We post short little breaking news bits that let our community know what's happening right now in this immediate point in time. Those men and women, they post the entire stories in a magnificent way. But theirs is after the fact. Mine is when it's happening. I look at it like this. I'll equate it to food. If you got to dinner, you have an appetizer, you have a main dish. I'm the appetizer, they're the main dish. They do a great job at it. They write amazing stories. I don't pit myself here and say, I'm Earl Campbell, I write great news stories. No, I don't do that. I say I provide my community with real-time news of what's happening right now to keep your family safe. That's it. He then called me the county executive, Julie Giordano's business partner, and said that we use social media and PAC 14 to push our narrative. I'm not sure what narrative he's trying to push, other than we're trying to spread good, news into the community and let people know what's happening. And I guess that's a threat to him. Goes on to talking about how he can be called and contacted by all these people who complained about my page. Talks about how you never hear that because I banned everyone and I said I was proud of it. So again, we're right back at it again. Everybody's talking about the hot topics. It's been the topic for many, many weeks, probably months. So let's break this down a little more. I kind of feel like this is common sense, but maybe to some people it's not. So it does not do me any good to remove people from our social media platforms. It doesn't matter what platform it is. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It does not benefit me to remove people from those platforms. It makes no sense. The whole goal is to grow. If I enjoyed it and I didn't want to deal with people on a Facebook page or a social media page, I just wouldn't have a page. I would just have the website. I'd put up a post and I would just list what happens throughout the day. But I don't. Here's why we delete people, we ban people. And this is coming from me. This isn't any rumors. This isn't Mike Lewis sharing his story or the council or county executive. This is coming straight from Earl Campbell. My wife and I deal with a ton of messages and comments. My wife deals with about 95% of the comments because I don't have the tolerance to deal with it. I get so annoyed with some of the people, what they say. Just like you, I get annoyed with those comments. You've all seen the posts when we have several hundred comments, sometimes thousands of comments. And what happens is off of those comments that are posted, people start sending us messages. If people don't hear what they say in the post, well, then they reach out to us in a comment. And that's okay. When someone comes on the page and they start acting like a fool, and they start cursing at me or my wife, and they start just, causing issues, and they don't play by the rules, I don't hurt hard feelings. I don't get into arguments. I don't get into a spat that's going to last for days on end and, sucks away hours of my time. I simply remove you from the page. You guys all see me do it. I don't hide it. I don't want that negativity on our page. While most other pages and most other platforms are begging for likes and shares and comments, I don't do it. I simply remove them from the page because if they're causing me issues now, chances are they're going to cause me problems in the future. For me, my wife, so the page doesn't turn into a complete soap opera and a drama page, I just get rid of them. I don't want to deal with it. And then, you have people to say the same thing like we talked about earlier. They'll say, well, you can't do that. You're censoring them. This is my business. I don't know why that's so hard to understand. It's no different than anyone else owning a business. This is my business. So when you walk into a business and you act a fool, or as we said earlier, you can't control yourself inside of a business, they're going to ask you to remove. They're going to remove you. And if they won't remove you, they'll call the police. I don't have to call the police. I just click a button. I really don't understand why that is so difficult to understand. Just play by the rules. There's not many rules. And if you don't like the page and you're going to complain about what we do, what does that make any sense for me to keep you on the page? So that I can hear you completely complain every day. Oh, they shouldn't have this. They shouldn't do that. Okay, then fine. I help you out. Now you don't see it no more. Some people say that I'm censoring people, and that is fine. Say what you want. But here's a fact. Everyone that plays by the rules are here on this page. They don't get banned. They don't get removed from the page. So it's not everyone. I have many disagreements with people on here. There are several people. You go back and look at every one of these posts, and there's probably a disagreement with me and somebody else. They don't get banned. But they're also not calling me F-bombs and, calling me nasty names and talking about me or my wife. I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to allow a chosen few to ruin it for the rest of the people that enjoy this page and find value in what we offer. I will not allow someone's negativity to ruin this page for the rest of us. Anyways, he goes on to saying a bunch of stuff. And then he goes into talking about the whole Matt Cristofelli, the Worcester County Sheriff, whole ordeal. And he says that, Matt Cristofelli announced that he was going to encrypt the channels, and it drew the ire of a Facebook blogger, Earl Campbell. That's me. And if you recall, that just wasn't the case at all. If you go back and you look and you read at what happened, and I'm going to be as brief as I can with the story, but Matt Cristofelli and I were friends at one point. And I had asked him if he was going to encrypt the channels because I was about to make a very large investment into the company. And before I did that, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to spend this money for nothing. Many of you remember back then I was having issues picking up Ocean City, couldn't hear Wicomico, and I had some people from Wicomico that really wanted to have coverage down there because they just didn't know what was happening in their town. And they reached out to me and they were like, "Can you please, can you help us out down here?" And so I found a way that I could do it, and that's what I was working on. Matt, at the same time, he never answered me. He just never responded back. I don't remember how long it was, but I had talked to several other people, and several people that were, Worcester County Sheriff's Office, that were some high ups and, people that work there, deputies, and they all said they knew nothing about it. So Matt had reached out to me and asked me to post something for him on a personal level, and I had no issues with it. He then went on the page and made a comment on the page numerous times, commending me on how I run the page and how I always look out for officer safety and how I look out for their benefit. He made it a habit to always comment on the page, and he was always very positive. So I had no reason to believe or think that he would do something like that, encrypt the channels, knowing it would cause an issue. Not for me for here in Wicomico County, but in Worcester County, where I'm getting ready to, drop a significant amount of change on an investment in the company. Keep in mind, we had endorsed him in the election. He was very, very pro Eastern Shore Undercover. And in addition, he had just accepted a significant sponsorship for me for a canine seminar that they were just getting ready to hold. Now, let's slow down here a little bit, because before anyone says that I bribe good old, Matt Cristofelli, good old Mikey and old Joe Holloway, they're right in there saying I bribe everybody. You guys have all seen how I have helped out canine. Whether it's the vests, whether it's the medical kits, whatever it is, training. I do all I can to make sure that we can help these guys. Canine is near and dear to my heart. So I started out, I made a small donation when I was asked to, and then they ran short. So called me up and said, "Hey, any chance you could make another donation? We need XYZ," which I agreed to. And then getting close to the end, I found out that one of the food sponsors backed out, and I decided that I would pick that up too. So I covered it all, covered the my portion. So with him accepting money from me, there was no reason for me to ever believe that he was negative or didn't like Eastern Shore Undercover. And I had no reason to think that he would encrypt. I just didn't believe it. I just didn't. So with all that said, I didn't think there was any chance that he would do it. And keep in mind, most of all, put all that other stuff behind us. Keep in mind, I was friends with Matt. Now let me elaborate on friends. I never went out to dinner with him or anything like that. I couldn't tell you what his wife's name or his kid's name is, nothing about his family. But we had previously worked together at some special events when he was in Dare, and he even offered me a job when he was at the sheriff's office when I left Ocean City, a school resource officer. I didn't accept that position. I had a health concern pop up, and it just didn't work out. So, but truth be told, I actually liked the guy. Never had an issue with him up until this point. And if you know me, I value friendship. Very loyal guy, and I feel that, if you have a friendship like that, and if you know someone is about to drop a very large investment, into a business and they've asked you about it, and you can prevent them from, wasting a five-figure money, you're definitely going to say something to them. Anyway, a friend had just bought a house in Ocean City, and when he heard that I was having issues with the reception in Ocean City, he offered to allow me to install a tower antenna, and I was going to put it's called a Uniden SDS 200. I was going to put that in his residence with a program that would have been built that could, send a signal to my house and my office. So, long story short, it was a pretty hefty investment, and he offered to let me do that. He's a great guy. The difference between him and Matt Crisafulli is he is a true friend. He's actually probably closer to a brother to me than anybody that I have. I talk to this guy. He's a wonderful guy, but he is a true friend, unlike Matt, who is a friend when he needs you. So that is why I was upset about this whole thing. You don't let a friend waste money. Just say, hey, man, we're going to do this. Don't waste your money. But that didn't happen. And I did waste money. I got some of it back, but for the most part, I lost a lot of money for that. So, continuing on, Sheriff Lewis at the council meeting goes into when this all happened. And look, I encourage everybody to call, write, and email their oppositions to this being done. I did do that. And he called it an assault. He said that I told everybody to call and write and email their opposition to this being done. And I flat out say, yes, I did say that. But is it an assault? He called it an assault. An assault on Sheriff Crisafulli. He then goes to say that in show of support, he announced that he would be supporting Crisafulli. And he too would be encrypting channels in Wicomico County. So, wait a minute. We're not worried about the citizens in Wicomico County. We're not worried about officer safety in Wicomico County. We're just worried about supporting a sheriff over the next town. Does that make sense to anybody? I digress. What he said is true. He did say that. He came on our page, and I will post his comment here for you guys to read. And if you hit the pause button, if you need to, you can read it, slow it down, whatever you need to do. In there, I will encourage you to pay attention to about 3/4 of the way down the page on the comment. And you will see he says the following, and I quote, "However, Eastern Shore Undercover, in their apparent uncontrollable compulsion to be the first one to break the news, delivers very preliminary information, which instills excitement, fear, and anxiety for those on social media. Consequently, my cell phone lights up as I begin receiving telephone calls from people who otherwise would have never bothered me." Let me say that again. I began receiving telephone calls from people who otherwise would have never bothered me. One more time for those in the back that can't hear it. I began receiving telephone calls from people who otherwise would have never bothered me. Again, I'm not bothering him. I'm not calling him. I don't even have his phone number. People he gives his phone number to are his friends, his family. They're the people that are calling him. Now, how am I responsible for people that are calling him that he gives his number to? Think about that. How does that make any sense? And that's all going to pull together here in a couple minutes, and you'll understand a little bit better why. He then goes on to saying, excuse me, I have to stop what I'm doing to now deal with a post from Eastern Shore Undercover. Ask yourselves this. How do people get the sheriff's phone number? Would you agree that he has to give the phone number to somebody? How am I responsible for people calling this man? If you don't want people calling you, don't give out your damn number. It's not rocket science. Oh, wait, it gets better. So the little crybaby goes on a few months later, and, Ocean Pines Police Chief Tim Robinson, who, by the way, I think is an awesome guy. Ocean Pines truly got an amazing person when they hired him. He is a good dude. I can't say enough good things about him. Anyways, Chief Robinson called me and he said, "Hey, Earl, can you do me a favor? The sheriff's upset that people are calling him when you make a post. And, his friends and family are bothering him. So could you please make a post and tell people to stop calling him?" And I was honestly I was completely dumbfounded. And that happened not once, but twice, 2 different times, to the point that I had to make a post and a social media post. And I wrote, if you guys remember, I wrote that long email begging people to not call the crybaby and don't bother him, because I guess he just was too busy or too much of a coward to tell those people, "Hey, stop calling me." That's all you got to say. "Hey, don't call me when you see something on Eastern Shore Undercover." Then I started hearing a couple weeks later that, he was getting angry and, he's a very vindictive person. So let me get into a little bit about, Sheriff Lewis. When I was an officer, he was a state trooper for the most part. And I think he ran for election shortly thereafter. Shortly after I got out of the academy. But I attended all of his interdiction schools, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he wasn't respected, he wasn't looked up to by many officers, including myself. I knew without question back then he was very popular. I don't know if it was the right word, but he was at least respected. So when you have someone at his level, the caliber of Mike Lewis, you just can't go up against him and be confrontational with him on a social media platform. Not because I was intimidated by Mike Lewis or I was afraid to go up against Mike Lewis, but the fact that I didn't want to piss off the grunts, the rank and file, the people that had the boots to the ground, those guys. If you know me, I could care less what people think about me or what Mike Lewis and his leadership, thinks about me. It was the people that work on the streets is who I did not want to be upset. My friends, the people that I've come to know, my, former co-workers. So I sort of played along, and that is why whenever I was asked to, do something, I did it. So I did the post, sort of babysit the comments, and shield them from Lewis. So anyway, back to the council meeting. I'll get off track really quickly. We're already an hour into this meeting, this podcast. So he goes on to say that encryption is an industry standards, which I agree. I'm not debating that at all, and he is correct. But in the words of Councilman Jeff Merritt, I'm going to use those words and say just because it can be done doesn't mean it should. And here's what I mean by that. We're not Baltimore. We're not Queen Anne's County. I mean, we're not Anne Arundel County. We're not big cities. We're not Philadelphia, where you have these big city, issues going on, and people are running around with scanners. There's a way to do encryption and transparency can stay to the community. And what I mean by that is every radio has encrypted channels. So I'm not saying that they should never use the encrypted channels. If you have a major incident, let's take, for instance, there's a hostage situation, and you got an officer that gets on scene, gets dispatched, deputy duty goes to, Mockingbird Lane for a domestic, and he gets there and he finds out there's a hostage situation, armed gunman inside. Well, from that point on, that radio should be switched over to an encrypted channel, so only those people involved have access to what's happening. I've said that since the beginning of this. I've never changed my opinion of that. That's how that should be done. But there's no reason to hide a motor vehicle crash on Route 13. There's no reason to hide a cow running up the road. There's no reason to hide the theft from Walmart. Sorry. Call it what you want. That's hiding information. If there's an armed gunman running around your neighborhood, you want to know about it. At least I do. So again, he brings up the fact about, there was an incident where someone was listening to a radio and applied for credit cards. I want to say it was in Dorchester County. Maybe, I don't remember who it was, but I believe it was Dorchester County. Again, that is not an encryption issue. That is a policy issue. I've explained it before. You have a different channel. It doesn't take but a minute. Let me explain to you what happens. When you're going to be asking for a social security number, that means that someone most likely has a hit. And what a hit is, let's say we're out there with, a traffic stop. And you got 4 officers on the scene, and they're running 4 people. And communications dispatcher is going to take their information. Well, all that information should be over a different channel, for starters. That shouldn't be on a regular channel. You're tying up a channel where some other person down the road is in a fight or a domestic call, and you're tying up the radio running 4 different people, where this guy's getting, his ass beat because he got no radio time. So we won't worry about social or officer safety. Well, that's a big issue, because if that officer can't get on the radio because you're running 4 different people, that's an officer safety issue. So let's say, for instance, you're running them. Let's say, for instance, they do it the right way, and they take it over to channel 4, or whatever Wicomico County is going to call it. That channel is strictly for running information. No calls are going to be on there. No other officers are going to be on there. There's no officer safety issues. That dispatcher is going to take the information, and she's going to return it back to them, and she's going to say, Joe Dirtbag, I'm getting a hit. Can you get me a social? At that point, what's going to happen, 90% of the time, they're going to detain that person for investigative purposes. When he's in handcuffs, everything's calm. No more officer safety issue. He's in handcuffs. We can slow it all down, be calm about things. We can start gathering his information. We can find out if he's got tattoos. We can find out if he's got scars. We can get his social security number. And we can relay all that stuff over to the dispatcher, who then is going to come back and say he's 1099, which means he's wanted. It's been confirmed. And at that point, if it's extraditable or if it's in the area, that person's going to be placed under arrest. The scene is secure. There's no officer safety issues. But unfortunately, Wicomico County doesn't use that. So again, before we fall into this whole spiel about this is an encryption issue, no. This is a policy issue. It's poor leadership. It should have been done many years ago, because that was in place in 2003 when I was in Ocean City. So we're about 21 years behind. Let's get the game here. So then Lewis goes into talking about a meeting that happened on December 5th, 2023. Now, please remember that day. Please. I'm just asking you, December 5th, 2023. If you want to look for that yourself, you can go to the second video on Pack 14, go to the 33-minute mark, between 33-minute and 35-minute mark, and you'll hear the whole conversation. He goes on to saying that there was a meeting that took place where information got back to the county executive. And then he alluded that because of that, I began to attack him. My assault on Sheriff Lewis started that day. Now remember that date, okay? Let me show you how much of a liar this guy is. I'm going to put something here on the board for you. Remember that post that I showed you earlier when he made the comment? Let me show you that again. That date was October 22nd. So ask yourself, is October 22nd before or after December 5th? My grandkid is learning kindergarten stuff right now. This is like basic stuff here. Kindergarten school. Is October 22nd before December 5th? Or is December 5th before October 22nd? So why did he say that my attack started on December 5th? Well, I'll tell you why he did that. Because it looks bad on the county executive. He wanted you to think that the county executive fed me some information, which he did not. Typical Mike Lewis. Typical lie. Because he thinks others won't follow up on it. And they won't do their homework. Well, Jack, I'm here to tell you, I give you facts on this show. And they're here to be seen. And this date cannot be changed. You can go back and look at Facebook. Go back and look at all the posts from when all the stuff happened with Mike Lewis. And you can also go back and look at the 2A meeting that happened that same weekend. If you have any questions, look at the date of the 2A meeting over at Atlantic Tactical. Now, let's continue on. Lewis goes on to literally accuse me of bribery of a political figure, the county executive nonetheless. He stated that I made a donation for $3,500 in a non-election year, to use his words, to the county executive. So let me break this down to you in layman terms so everyone understands, because I was also accused by this by Councilman Joe Holloway, which, speaking of which, I find it really ironic of him, of all people, would accuse me of such a thing, knowing the following. Can you put that up? Put that up on the screen. I'm going to show you guys something here. Remember the Wicomico County Council replaced the former attorney and said he was injured or was under the weather or had health issues? I don't remember what it was, which many people raised questions about. Well, do you see who made a campaign contribution, donation to Mr. Holloway? Do you see that name there? That's Mr. Robert Benson. Interesting. So does that same theory work for Mr. Holloway? I mean, he's accusing me of bribery. Does the same go for him? Because apparently there's some kind of relationship there. Because Mr. Benson made a donation to Mr. Holloway. Public information. Look it up. Anyways, this isn't about Mr. Holloway. We'll address that at another time. This is about old Mikey. So let's get back to him. The donation that he's speaking of was a $3,500 donation that my wife and I made to the county executive. Yes, 100%. I did it. But it wasn't during her campaign. It was for an event she was hosting at Evo off of South Salisbury Boulevard. And I asked if I could be part of that. And she extended the invitation to us because I wanted to sponsor the event. We're going to put that on the screen here too. This is documented on Facebook. The event was on February 29th. It was a leap year celebration. And as you can see from the image, I took that night. She thanked us for being a sponsor on the poster, on the little poster here. I thanked her in a post for allowing us to meet people for advertising. We had just launched our website. We were super excited about it. But I don't know business owners here in town. I just don't. So my thought was, hey, if I can get in here and meet some of these business owners, it would benefit me, because it is not easy, guys, to sell advertising. I'll tell you right now, it's very, very, very difficult. My website, my platform has more engagements, more views than anything else out here, but I'm not a sales guy. I should hire one of these sales guys from Pohanka. They're awesome guys. Big shout out to Pohanka. Mr. Will Toadvine, go see him if you need a Toyota. He's the man. But anyway, I suck at it. I'm not a sales guy. I'm not any good. If I can admit my faults, I'll admit them. And I admit I cannot sell for anything. So this was an opportunity for me to get in front of important business leaders in our community. You can see the business people that were on here. I'm not the only one there. But unfortunately, the way the motive was spun is that was a contribution to the campaign. No, it was for this event. Again, you can't debate that. Here it is right here. That's what I was doing. My wife and I sat all the way in the back of the room because I didn't know anybody. There was Matt from the county executive's office. We sat with him, and there was a Wicomico County Sheriff's deputy that showed up. We sat with him. A lot of good people were there. There was people from all various different businesses. It was such a great event that they didn't even have to charge admission for the dinner because there were so many businesses present who supported that event and who supported our county executive. So there was no bribery. None of that happened. Total BS. Total lie. Anyways, so he says 3 days later, I don't remember if he said January 8th or January 9th, whatever it was. I was provided with documents on Mike Lewis and made a post that I was going after him. Sorry, another lie. We should have had one of those little, tickers right here. Every time he tells a lie, we could just do something, one of the little. And every time would have been we'd been 87 by now. Anyways, I put in a FOIA for Mike Lewis's financials through the county because I wanted to see what he was spending. Someone had given me some information and told me to look into it. And I looked into it. It turned out it wasn't true. Fact check, baby. I do my homework. So I didn't go forward with any of that was told me, those rumors. But what that FOIA did do was show me about his spending, which is absolutely insane and toxic. And as a taxpayer, it infuriated me. That led me to looking into some other places where he went, where he was going for all these special events and getting videos and photos and all these various things. How does one person go to multiple places for dinner and meals on Valentine's Day on the county dime? Someone please explain that to me. In multiple counties at that. Anyway, interesting, but that's for another day. We're going to save all that juicy shit for another day when the election time comes around. Anyways, he said I obtained them with his embellished tone of voice, the county itself. Then says, now who's going to provide him with those documents? Well, if you'd have called me and asked me, I would have told you. It was through a FOIA that I did through Wicomico County Finance, which I submitted the right way, did my homework, and got them. That isn't what he said, though. He said, I got them through, quote, my business partner, County Executive Julie Giordano. He then went on to quote a post I put out and said that I was going to release info on the sheriff, which I did say 100%. I'm not going to tell you I didn't, and I planned on it. But I made the decision to wait in case he decided to run again for county sheriff. And I'm going to need every piece of information I can to make sure that liars aren't running this county any longer. So I held on to all that information. Still have it. I have it in several places. And that will come out in time. All that financial stuff, all the videos, all the stuff that people have sent me, stuff that's happened in the office, comments that have been made to, people or people that used to work for him. I have so much that I'm going to lay out there. And just so people that are saying, oh, he's bluffing. This is just part of a file that I have. And I'll show you guys here. What's up here? I don't bluff. I have folders that contain detailed info, photos, videos, people sent me, and I've obtained them on a FOIA on Mike Lewis and Matt Crisoli. But I would be foolish to post them now. It just doesn't mean, I make an article now and then, 6 months down the line, people have short-term memories and they forget about it. So I'm going to save them for the right time, right place. So anyway. Infuriates me. But anyway. I'll say this one more time. Yes, I did say this. The sheriff can bully a lot of people, but I'm not one of them, and that's a fact. I'm not going to be bullied by this guy. Then he finished up by telling the truth, actually, and saying, the reason is because he was trying to shut us down because people call him, which at the time was truthful. We've been over that. Again, didn't want to be bothered. He then goes on to cry about, if this Is this the type of business that the county should be doing business with? And then had the nerve to say that I've launched a campaign against him. But here's the most comical statement of the night. He says he never really tried to shut anyone down. Really? This man has gone to multiple meetings and told multiple people, this is no secret. This man bragged about he was going to shut me down. Told many people, which I ain't got to worry about him going back and finding out who it was, because he told so many people that it's impossible for him to figure it out. Many of which come back and told me, and I'm not going to mention their names, but it's funny how things change when he gets on a big screen. And he wants to change the motive to fit his narrative. He then goes on to saying he's just trying to protect the men and women of the sheriff's department. And I am here to tell you that is a boatload of BS. Let me break this down for you. This guy is hated by the men and women of the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. The guy thinks he is better than all of the deputies that work for him. And if you think I'm kidding, I beg you to ask any of them. Just pick one of them. And if you know them on a close, friendly basis, they will tell you what they think of him. It's no secret. It really isn't. He doesn't care about them at all. This is the guy that has special little grips on his gun, nice little genuine faux pearl grip handles on his gun, but other deputies can't do anything to their guns. Literally. Oh, and then there's the latest kicker that I just started hearing about this week was, a lot of the deputies had these stickers on their cars, their patrol cars, that honored their fallen brother, Deputy Glenn Hilliard. And, that was a way of them honoring him and letting his legacy live on through people seeing it on their cars. And you know what Sheriff Lewis made him do? He made them all take them off. Forced them to remove the stickers for absolutely no reason at all. How in the hell are you going to run around town, event after event, talking about Glenn, going everywhere you can with his family, taking pictures wherever you can, and then order the people that work for you that actually worked with him to take a sticker off their damn car that was just honoring their fallen brother? Please explain that to me. Does anybody actually think that was a good move? Is that going to bring up morale? Really? We can walk around town, go to every event we can, where a camera's in your face, just to give you a little bit of 3 minutes of, primetime camera view. But the deputies that actually worked with this guy on a day-to-day basis, who were trying to honor the man with a sticker, a damn sticker, and he makes them take it off. Does anybody think that was the right move? Anybody? Serious. If you do, leave me a comment in down below here. Promised my wife when I made this that I wasn't going to get angry making this podcast, and I've already failed. Sorry, honey. Anyway, so then he talks about an email that was sent from me to him. And he said, I showered him with comments. So let me be blunt and to the point with this. I knew that he was upset with people calling him. And I knew he was upset with people bothering him. As you saw, we posted earlier. And I was told that I wanted to get anywhere with him. I had to be nice. And I had to quote, I'm going to read this right from my little email that I printed out here. This person told me, if you want to get anywhere with him, you have to kiss his ass a little bit, or he will shut you out because you're no value to him. So I sent him an email, and I stroked his ego a little bit. My entire reasoning was simply because I was sick and tired of people calling me about he was upset over his friends and family calling him and bothering him. So I did offer to treat him to lunch, no doubt. But I've also offered to treat every single person that I've ever gone out with lunch, that I've taken out to lunch or breakfast. I've never let anybody else pay. That's just the person that I am. With the exception of Wicomico County Councilman Josh Hastings. And that was because he refused to pay, would not let me pay. Not in a bad way. He's a great guy. I truly like him. But he's just a straight shooter, and he didn't want me to have to pay for the whole thing. So he paid for half, I paid for half. But yes, I did offer, but that was because that is me. And I was asking him to meet, taking part of his time. So I felt that I should pay. You know, he's taking time out of his schedule to meet with me. So I'll offer to pay for lunch. So let me read this email to you guys that he is referring to. And I have to find that email. It's not here. Hold on 1 second, folks. Bear with me here. Bear with me here. Bear with me here. That ain't it. That ain't it. Hold on. Okay. So I'm going to read this email to you. I sent him an email that said, where is it? I'm sorry. I apologize, folks. Give me a second here. Make sure I got the right one. There you go. Yep. I wanted to reach out to you to see if you were willing to meet with me over lunch one day, this week or next week, whatever fits into your schedule, discuss the concern that I have with the website Eastern Shore Undercover. Let me first say that this has nothing to do with the Sheriff's Department. It is more about make sure that I'm doing things okay. And due to the respect that I have for you, fluffing his ego a little bit, and knowing that you're a straight shooter, I figured you'd be the best person to ask, go over this, and get an honest answer. I went into a little bit of the stuff. You can read it. I'll put it up here for you guys to read. I know you're a busy man, so I promise I'll only take about 30 minutes of your time, and I'll treat you to lunch wherever we go. I'm not sure if you eat out in the local establishments around here with current behavior towards law enforcement. If not, I totally understand. If you can't do lunch, I could even come to your office and meet with you there or anywhere you wish. So that's the email. I didn't say what it was all about. I didn't say anything near in that email to him. Basically said that and waited for a response. So I got that response. Typical Mike Lewis fashion. And he responded with the following. Give me a second here. Let me put this up for you guys. It says, Earl, good morning. I certainly don't mind meeting for lunch. I usually eat out in the county every day of the week. And I can tell you that's true because I've seen his financials. It keeps me connected to my electorate. However, hopefully I can address your concerns in a brief email. I will say that the only concern I have ever had with Eastern Shore Undercover is that in your haste to be the first one much like sbnews.com back in the day, to break the news, there is a tremendous amount of fear, anxiety, and misinformation created for me in my office. My cell phones, both of them, start going off. My relatives start calling, and those whose lives are not as busy as mine are attached to a Facebook 24/7. Light up my Facebook Messenger page with inquiries about what's going on. Most of the time, I have no clue what they're talking about because I have certain specific criteria as to what I need to be notified by my command staff, personnel. Oftentimes I find myself dealing with small BS issues because of what Eastern Shore Undercover just posted on Facebook. I refuse to have or pay a direct liaison within my office who is on hand to call or notify anyone, including local media, as to what is breaking at that time. That came from him, his email. You see it, right? I believe there is a public safety concern and the public needs to be notified ASAP. We obviously get our message out through a number of social media platforms. As you said in your email, Earl, I'm a straight shooter. If you'd like to come by my office at any time, discuss my response, please let me know. Good luck to you and your family. Thank you, sir. Mike. So, I could tell from his email he didn't want to really meet for lunch. He didn't want to meet at all. So I just responded in an email with the following. Look, I'm not going to read this whole email because it's pretty long, my response. Here's what I said. After I was up and running, I knew the direction the page was headed. I reached back out to all the supervisors and asked for feedback. I had a handful of local law enforcement supervisors reply that their only concern was we didn't put a delay on posting calls. The call would come out and we would post it. I spoke with Captain Tim Robinson of your agency. I had a meeting with Captain Howard Drewer from Salisbury Police Department, and I assured them both that I would change how we posted our calls and put a delay on the call, which they both agreed was beneficial to the safety of officers involved. Many requested that we just allow the officers to get on scene, which we did, but then I spoke with a supervisor from the Maryland State Police, excuse me, and he expressed the same concern and stated that a lot of local law enforcement were under the impression that we immediately post those calls, which we don't. Very hard for me to shake that perception, but I don't post calls when they come out. It's sort of the same as your perception that if we want to be the first one to post calls. To me, it doesn't matter if we're the first or the last to post things. I can assure you that if you look at all the other social media outlets and all the media outlets that are out there, they will post 99% of the press releases prior to Eastern Shore Undercover. You can also look at anything event worthy, and all of the media outlets that we post will post that prior to Eastern Shore Undercover. As far as the calls are concerned, in order to run this page, I have to sort of post the calls as they happen, or there really isn't any reason to post anything at all. That is what the public wants. And permitting it isn't jeopardizing any officer safety or jeopardizing an investigation. I can't maintain a website or social media page with posting yesterday's news. And in order for me to keep that positive influence for my audience towards law enforcement, I sort of have to keep them happy. And in turn, hopefully, their attitudes towards law enforcement will remain positive. I broke it down then and I went into how we do it. I said, that being said, I do not post any calls once it is dispatched to a deputy until the following occurs. A, an officer or a deputy is on the scene. B, there is no officer safety concerns. C, nothing that we post will intervene with the investigation that could come from that call. And finally, what we post comes directly from a radio, and I went into that there as well. There was some other stuff. Then I got to the real gist of the reason I was calling. I said, as far as people are calling you, I'm very sorry about that. I don't even know why I was apologizing, but I did. Whatever. I don't know what to do on our end to eliminate a problem. If you have any suggestions, I'm all ears. I never meant for this to become a headache for you. I created this platform to do the complete opposite. So yes, I did offer to take him out to lunch, but it was not a bribe or a partnership with him. It was simply because the crybaby was whining about his friends and family calling him when calls were posted on Eastern Shore Undercover. Folks, I can't stop that. We've become a pretty popular website and social media platform. So if people want to know something and they're friends with the sheriff, and this probably happens with every chief of police, every supervisor, they think they know things when they don't. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying I can't stop that. It's no different than if 10 police cars went flying up, I don't know, pick a road, Jersey Road. If 10 police cars go flying up Jersey Road and they stop and they all get out and there's a big ordeal and they're there for 2 hours, you think they're going to call Mike Lewis? Yeah. You think they're going to call the lieutenant? Yeah. Think they're going to call the captain and say, hey, do you know what's going on over here? Are we safe? Chances are. Probably, yeah. So I digress. Continuing on. So then he went on to saying that our county executive wasn't stupid enough, quote, to give a radio to a blogger. All of which time Mike Goldberg, acting like a 5-year-old child, pumping his fist on the video. Yeah! Go look at it. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. He did it so many times. 38 minutes and 45 seconds of the second video, if you want to see the part that I'm talking about. It is absolutely the most immature thing that I've ever seen. This grown man sitting in the front row, acting like his favorite football team just scored a touchdown. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, it was crazy. This is in public. He did it multiple times in the meeting, which was just absolutely crazy to me. But anyway, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. County Executive Jordy Giordano had her press conference on Thursday. You can guys go back and watch that. I think she did an amazing job debunking all this nonsense that happened from her side, most of which was coming from the county council meeting. And I'll put a link to that down below in the comments that you guys can click on if you want to go watch that. It's not very long, less than an hour. One thing I would say, and as I said before, over the past few days, people were asking me what the MOU. You know, what a lot of people didn't realize is that MOU gave them a little bit of control. I'm sorry, I'm getting the hiccups. It gave them a little bit of control over media outlets. County executive Julie Giordano sort of she was smart. She's a very intelligent lady. She found a way that she could basically prevent me, most of all, from giving out any kind of bad information about Mike Lewis, about the county council. And I tell you, I give her a lot of credit. When I gave the radio back, I realized that driving in there that day that these people weren't smart enough to realize that she basically put handcuffs on me to make sure that look, we're all going to get along somehow, some way. Earl, you have to get along with Sheriff Lewis. That she put in there that if the sheriff feels that anything is I don't remember the words. I don't have the MOU in front of me, but sensitive, I think was the word. Sensitive information that they would contact me, and I'll either not put it up, or if I did, I'd take it down. She put parameters on there? The 15 to 30 minute rule, what we could and couldn't post. It was actually a very, very smart thing for the county. But now she took them handcuffs off me, so now I don't have to worry about that. And that's why we do this here today, and I can call out all his bullshit. Without having to worry about violating the MOU or upsetting, the county council, the county executive, the sheriff, anybody. So they weren't smart enough to do that, or smart enough to realize that. So while he's on this rant, he goes into saying that I refer to myself as Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. It was actually comical. It made me laugh, and then when I started watching it more, my wife got a little upset with it. It was the equation of a little jealous kid that was upset because he can't do what the big kids do. I gotta tell you, it was so crazy to me. Like, who would say that? Let me first say this. People on the page have called me Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. When we're out, if I'm out to dinner, if I do something, if I'm at an event, someone always comes up to us and says, hey, are you Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover? And I always thought it was just because people were being nice. They didn't know my name. So if you don't know somebody's name, you say, hey, are you, such and such? I'm sure, the owner of Chick-fil-A, the manager of Chick-fil-A probably gets the same thing. Hey, are you Mr. Chick-fil-A? I have never, ever, ever referred to myself as Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. Never. I have referred to my wife as Miss Eastern Shore Undercover, but that's because everyone else started doing it, and I just sort of fell into the same hole. Everybody calls her Miss Eastern Shore Undercover, and it's funny because now when we're out to dinner, I even say it to her, hey, Miss Eastern Shore Undercover, you want to go do this? You want to go do that? It's a big joke. It's look, I didn't know anything was wrong with someone calling somebody Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. Apparently, he is jealous. Someone on the shore has competed with his little bit of popularity. So that's the only excuse I can. I'm truly and honestly, I don't understand that whole concept. I think it's comical. I think it's really funny. That a sheriff is upset because someone calls somebody Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. Ugh. Anyway, look, you guys, you can call me whatever you want. You can call me Earl, you can call me Mr. ESU, you can call me Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover, whatever you think. I don't think it's illegal, at least not yet, but this is the land of Mikey, so who knows? God only knows what will happen. We may pass a law next week at the council meeting that you can't call anybody Mr. Eastern Shore Undercover. Anyway, back to the council meeting. So here again, the sheriff gets upset about me saying, if you don't like what is said and don't like my page, just unfollow me. Look, I've been over this, I don't even know how many times. We're an hour, 45 minutes into this damn thing. The reason I do that is because I'm not a head case like he is, and I don't need to beg people to follow me. If you like what we do, great. I want you on the page. We want you here in a big old family. But if not, don't feel obligated to stay. You know, I've told people that I'm friends with, they said, I don't want him to see. You're not going to upset me if you unfollow my page. It's just not. It seems pretty simple to me. But I guess to the sheriff, this is also against the law. I guess I can't tell people to unfollow the page. I guess maybe the law of old sheriff, but not in the U.S. He legitimately gets so animated at this point of the video. It's pretty comical. I really hope you guys go back and watch some of this. And once you hear me saying it, and then you go back and watch it, it'll crack you up. It's funnier than any movie that you're going to watch. So anyway, he complains about all these different people that I ban and I don't look at the page. But you know who I don't ban? You know who I don't remove from the page? Mike Lewis. Yeah. He's a follower of the page. Let me show you. This is his page, his Facebook page. You can go look at it. It's not blocked. It's not locked up. Now think about that for a minute. A guy that's supposed to hate this page, yet he follows it. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the guy's out of town more than he's here, and he has to stay up to date with what's happening here on the Eastern Shore. So you know how he does that? You don't want to call back in and check with anybody. So he just checks old Eastern Shore Undercover. Let's get back to the video. I find this next part pretty funny too. He complains about having to do more FOIA requests now than he ever has in the past. And his reasoning is because the county executive encourages it. Is there anything wrong with being transparent? Here again, we're trying to hide things. Is there anything wrong with the county executive saying, if you're curious about something, do a FOIA and find it out? A serious question. Anyone think that's an issue? I don't get it. Why, on God's green earth, would a sheriff be upset with his constituents being able to gather information on him or his agency or bothering him? I mean, that's what this all amounts to. I guess the same question could be posed on what the real reason is why he's looking to shut off the outside world. I don't know. I don't have any answer. So he then goes on to saying the whole thing was, a monetary gain for Eastern Shore Undercover. And he said, period. Real loud. It gets real animated. Period. Simple as that, he says. Again, jealousy comes into play here. Because as I've said and been upfront with everyone for many months, having or not having that radio has nothing to do with me and my finances. Not that it is any of his business what I make or how much I make or how I make it. I can post about a fly crawling over the street and getting squashed, and I get paid for it. That's how it works, folks. Everybody knows how social media is. So trust me when I tell you, missing out on 10 or 15 posts from the local sheriff's department isn't going to make or break me. Sorry, Sheriff, you lied. again. Where's that little dinger at? There you go. But then he goes into saying that the county executive provided a steady cash flow. Again, incorrect. I volunteered to give back that radio. Not because I was forced, not because anybody said, you have to do this. I gave back the radio because I was tired of hearing people complain. And when I was asked to pause the MOU, I agreed. It didn't matter to me. Yeah, sure, fine. You know, if that solves the problem, so be it. And I'll be honest with you, at this point in time, I don't even want the radio back. I've already moved on. I've made changes that I needed to make to keep my business rolling and provide this community with the info that they need to stay safe. Am I going to get all the calls? All the police calls? No, I'm not. And you guys have all seen it. You've all messaged me over the last 2 or 3 days and said, hey, do you know what's going on here? And I say the same message to everybody. I have a cookie cutter copy and paste that I put in there. Sorry, we don't have access to that anymore. Bear with me. I'm trying to get the information. But then he goes into it again and accuses me of bribery, saying I bribed the county executive with $3,500. You know, we've already been over that. It is what it is. Goes into talking about the citizens' privacy, which I find is a total joke. So the past 5 decades or however long, you know, scanners have been around, people listened and there was never an issue. Now, all of a sudden, because Eastern Shore Undercover is growing and he is afraid that election is coming, now it's a major issue. How come this was never an issue before? How come there's never been? You saw the email. The only problem I ever have with Eastern Shore Undercover is when I get bothered. Did he say anything about privacy there? Nope, not at all. Not at all. Did he say anything in the first comment he ever made? Nope. He didn't. Because all it is BS. And everybody knows that. When we first started off this war, the issue was officer safety because everyone has scanners. And we debunked that. We proved that was wrong. Simple little FOIA request showed that ain't happening. Then it moved to a different reason. Now it's citizens' privacy issue. So he rounds it out by saying that the privacy of his citizens are not for sale. Earl Campbell for Eastern Shore Undercover. He need to keep his $3,500 donation. Well, I got news for you. I wouldn't give that man 35 cents if it was I just wouldn't give him anything. I wouldn't give him a penny off the ground if I found it. So he ain't got to worry about that. And then he goes into he complains about me and the county executive being seen together at these various events. And this part is absolutely crazy to me. Okay, I'm gonna go over these events with you guys that I have been to with the county executive, and you tell me if we're just hanging out and, you know, all this running around at all these different events. We went to a canine event where we were donating a vest. 1. We were seen at a Delmarva Shorebirds game together. 2, where I took photos. We were seen at the fundraising event for the Maryland State Police, the trooper that his family. 3, I invited everybody to that, just so everybody knows, including Sheriff Lewis, which he did not attend. There was a second trooper event that the county executive came to. That's 4. We were seen at another canine event that we were both invited to separately at the Redmond's Lodge. That's 5. And I believe that's it. If I missed one, please don't charge me. My God, 5 events with the county executive. Holy cow. I went to 5 events where I was seen with her at an event over the last, what's she been in office, 2 years? You got me. I went to a bunch of benefits and law enforcement officers and the Shorebirds game. You see, much like the county executive, we like to help the community and we attend some of these events. So naturally, we're going to be there. No, I'm sorry. I'm wrong. Miss Eastern Shore just told me. She sent me a message. She sent me, it says, I did go to one more. And that was when I took pictures of the Republican headquarters at the grand opening. She was there. So sorry, there's 6 over 2 years. I'm not sure how that's attached at the hip as they travel throughout the region campaigning for 2026. Sorry. He then cried about wondering if I'm still going to bash him. And that was like the 10th time he's mentioned it. But again, is this about officer safety? Is this about citizens' privacy? Or is this about bashing Mike Lewis? He then goes on to say that the issue is now known as the FOJ, or the Friends of Julie. All right. Sure. I am friends with Julie. I admit it. I'm proud of it. That was all he had to say, really. He was emotional. The council member, he was super, super emotional, I should say. So much that the council members had to get him a bottle of water. I'm not kidding. Literally, he was that upset. Probably better word was nervous. Look, I'm not looking to make the guy upset or nervous, have a breakdown or anything here in a county council meeting. I was actually concerned about the guy that night. He was out of it. So, anyway, Somerset County Sheriff Ronnie Howard got up there and spoke next. I have nothing to really say about this man. I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. I don't talk negative to people about I don't know. And I have nothing to say about him. I don't have anything negative to say. I don't know him. My battle isn't with him. So I don't really have anything to say about him. The Dorchester County Sheriff spoke next, and he talked about officer safety and those being ambushed. And again, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. We've been over this 100 times, and honestly, this video is getting really, really long now. It's an hour and 50 minutes. Worcester County Sheriff Matt Crisafulli spoke next. You all know my opinion of Matt. Been over it. Used to respect him. Now I have, no respect for him. His integrity is seriously questioned. And some of the things that I know about this guy now that I didn't know back then, I just really don't have anything good to say about him or about him at all. So then, Joe Holloway made a comment about the FOIA request that was received. And County Executive Julie Giordano suggested that the secretary lady, I don't remember, Laura, I don't remember her name. I apologize. Laura something. I apologize. I forgot her last name. But apparently someone had sent something to the secretary, county administrator, whatever she is, about the FOIA request. And the county executive responded and said, in the future, make sure they go through a standard process. But he couldn't just leave it at that. He had to throw out my name in there and ask if she would have told Earl Campbell the same. Well, Mr. Holloway, yes. Earl Campbell has always had to go through the FOIA process, and it's a pain in the butt. But I have to do it every single time. Now, just think about this for a minute. What would happen if the county executive just gave out info to some people and not others? I can tell you, I would be mad at the county executive, especially knowing that I have to fill out all these papers on a computer each time I want to get that information. So if she does it for some of the friends of the council, but not me, I would be pretty upset. So is it okay for her to do it for the council friends, but not others? And it is even worse that this man suggested that. It's just crazy to me. Jeff Merritt spoke next. I'm almost at the end, folks. I'm getting close to all my notes. He spoke next, which he didn't make any sense of what he was saying. I don't even know what he said, to be honest with you. We're going to skip him, go on to Shani. She called me a blogger. She said she was against it because I was a blogger. And again, I don't know what you want to call me. If you want to call me a blogger, call me a blogger. I don't care. And she said she has experience with a blogger. And I'm assuming she is comparing me to Mr. Joe Albero because she's mentioned him to me several times in the past conversations. And that's fine. It doesn't assault me. It doesn't change my opinions of anything. Excuse me. She says she worked for the Daily Times for 15 years and the Somerset Herald, and they have the editors that monitor what reporters do. And I'm guessing she was upset because I don't have anyone to oversee what I do. I do my own thing here, and I think I do a pretty damn good job at it. She called me reckless. 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 She complained that I censor things again, beat the dead horse. And I'm not going to go over that again. We've been over it multiple times. Look, I've said a lot of nice things about this lady. I really have, and I wanted to be friends with her. And she says she can get along with anybody, but apparently she can't get along with me. because she didn't have nothing nice to say about me. So to each their own. You live and you learn. There will be no more nice stuff from me to her, I can assure you that. Next up was my old buddy Shane Baker. He talked about if he was dispatched to a call and he left, but he was still in the area. And by me posting 15 to 30 minutes later, I could ruin the fact that he was still in the area. If you've ever tried to hold a conversation with Shane, you would understand this is never an easy process. But let me break this down for common terms. If you go to the call, people knew you were there, and then I post that you were there, and you leave, but you're still in the area, I'm not really sure how that plays out, that my post that you were there, that people knew about, ruined anything. Anyone make sense of that? So then Jeff Merritt spoke again, and this is going to prove how much of a liar this guy is. He claims that 2 more social media outlets requested access to the radio communications. Now, just so everybody knows, I would have been perfectly fine with having 10 more media outlets. From my aspect, the more news outlets that are out there giving news to the community and informing our community, the better off we all are. Maybe I'll miss something that someone else is going to pick up on. Maybe they'll miss something that the next one's going to pick up on. The more is always better when it comes to media. But here's my question. Since those media requests go through the county executive's office, how does Jeff Merritt know that 2 more media outlets asked for them? Did he text the county executive and ask her? Did the county executive text him? I don't know. I doubt it, since he berates and bashes her every chance he gets. I seriously doubt it. So how does this guy, who has nothing to do with it, know that 2 more media outlets requested permission? Next up was John Cannon, and I got to say, I felt like this entire charade was like a planned and orchestrated event. But when Cannon got to his time, he sort of chuckled midway through, literally like got the smirk on his face, like he forgot his lines or what he was supposed to say. It's the most puzzling thing for me. It really was. But then he continued on, and he said what I was thinking. He said, and I quote, "We can no longer leave the security of this council." Interesting statement, wouldn't you think? I'm not trying to protect or secure any council members. I'm just trying to inform my community. So what is he talking about? I didn't even understand it. It was as if it was planned, like some big announcement was about to come out, and like he was staring out into nowhere, and you're waiting. And then Mike Lewis chimed in, and you knew something big was coming. And here it goes. A little bit of a pause. It was there. I was waiting. Mike Lewis announced that he planned on retiring, but now he's going to run because the county executive and her actions. He was going to run for a 6th term. Huh? Anyone else confused? What does that got to do with anything? Who cares if he runs? It doesn't affect the county executive position. He went on to saying that we need someone who's going to stand up to this bully and hold her accountable. Huh? Now I'm really, really confused. No offense to the county executive. But how's a 4'0" 100-pound lady a bully, for starters? And can anyone explain the rationale to me furthermore of what does this matter if he runs? She doesn't work for him. If anything, he works for her. And does anyone else think it's a totally asinine move to make a comment when she's the one that does budgets. She's the one that does the contracts. She's the one that does everything involved with what the sheriff's department needs. Talk about a dumb statement. So it makes you wonder, is he running for county sheriff? Is he running for county executive? I'd say interesting. So then, Salisbury Police Chief Dave Mindshine asked if he could speak. And I got to be honest with you, among everything that happened that night, this is the one that caught me way off guard. So a few months back, I emailed Chief Mindshine and asked him if he planned on encrypting the channels in Salisbury. And he informed me that the conversation was brought up, but he did not have any intentions of doing it at that point in time. But he was up front with me and said, look, I got to do a little more looking into it. Because it would restrict him and his department if anything happened with some other agencies, which I totally understood. And he responded back to me. I'll read you what he said. He said, to answer your question, I don't know. I have not spoken to Allied law enforcement or city administration about the change, and I need to fully understand if there is an impact on the Salisbury Police Department. Either way, since Salisbury Police Department operates on the Wicomico County radio systems, it could complicate operations. I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer at that moment. I will have those discussions very soon. So he went from that to this being an officer safety issue, which I just don't understand. Like, I really, Mike Lewis, Sheriff Chris Foley, those guys, they truly pissed me off by the whole spiel in the council. Chief Mindshine kind of upset me because I don't think that I've ever done anything to the Salisbury Police Department. And for him to say that was just, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I'm not going to say much about him. Like I said, I don't really know how to take what he said. He wasn't ignorant, wasn't rude by any means. Just a little confused about the whole issue with Salisbury Police Department. So after Mindshine talked, Councilman James Wynn, he spoke up, and I think this was absolutely the most important part of this entire council meeting. And if you want to follow this, go to the 1 hour and 8 second mark, 1.0800 of the video. He started off by just asking a simple question about how are we going to inform the public. And Mike Lewis said, we do it with press releases. He went on, excuse me. He went on to say he doesn't sit behind a keyboard and report it as up to the minute, such as the man standing at Chick-fil-A exposing his genitalia. He said that it was stimulating and entertaining, and that people don't want to know about that stuff. So I'm going to read you a comment that was posted on our page, a message that was sent to us. And there was also some comments on the page as well about this same thing. This comment comes, I'm not going to say who it's from. Mr. Campbell, I find it insanely questionable that our sheriff in our county doesn't believe that a man with his balls hanging out at the local Chick-fil-A isn't important. My family and I were at Hobby Lobby, and when my wife came out of the store, she wanted to go to Chick-fil-A for dinner. But we decided against it because we seen your post. I don't want my 7-year-old daughter and her friend seeing that bullshit that was posted, so that was very important to me and my family. Do you think that's nonsense? Is it important to you? Is it important to your family? If there's a man with his genitalia hanging out at a local restaurant, for you to avoid it? He then talked about a bird and a downspout, which I have no idea what this man was talking about, and said no one cares about it. Well, Sheriff, let me share with you some numbers. Just on Facebook, we have 124,000. We're midway through, so you might want to say 125,000. On Twitter, or X, we have 5,250 followers. Instagram, 8,500 followers. Among just those three platforms, not including TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, anything else, just those three combined, we've done over 10 million engagements this week alone. I would say someone cares. I don't brag about my page. But you know what? All those people are in our community must care about it because they've made us the most engaged news outlet on the Eastern Shore. Period. As you said. Period. Period. And much like he said, that can't be questioned. I don't know about anybody else. Can't speak for anyone else. But I don't want my child or my grandchild seeing some guy with his genitalia out. So yes, that's very important to me. Moving on. Getting ready to wrap it up here. We're almost done. Mr. Wynn asked about Broadcastify, and I beg everyone, I beg everyone, go look at the reaction from all 4 of the sheriffs when he brought Broadcastify up. It was as if Mike Lewis saw a ghost. Literally. He needed to take a drink of water. He was so nervous. Because Councilman Wynn brought up Broadcastify. The blood flushed from his face. His face drooped down a little bit. He had a concerned look on his face. And he just explained that it was a program that has a 15-minute delay. And Mr. Wynn returned the question and said, could that be done here in Wicomico County? And the sheriff responded by saying, we could have possibly, and I quote, we could have possibly done in Wicomico County. Whether we will do it now or not, don't know. Mr. Wynn gave a solution to the issue the sheriff had with Broadcastify. The sheriff knows if they do that, it's the same as Eastern Shore Undercover. It allows us to continue to inform the community, which doesn't work for him. Keep in mind, there's an election just 3 months away with a very important question on it. And there's also an election in 2 years where he may run for office again. Mr. Wynn then said he was just trying to keep as transparent as possible. And the most disgusting thing I've ever seen at a council meeting, people started laughing at him. It was disgraceful, disgusting, ignorant, immature. You have councilmen and women, law enforcement officers, people in a crowd laughing because a councilman cares about our transparency. He said there is some point, somehow, a way to release the information to the public, and they literally crushed him. He was just trying to get information out to keep you guys informed. I felt like they legitimately bullied him. It was what we teach our kids not to do. Councilman Wynn was the child that was being bullied by the entire rest of the playground. I guess I should call it a circus because that's what it was. Cannon then stated, regardless, our first priority is always these individuals sitting in front of us, referring to the 4 law enforcement officers that were sitting there. But I throw it right back at you again. So where does that fall with the citizens of Wicomico County? 200, 250, maybe 300 law enforcement officers in Wicomico County? 100,000 citizens in Wicomico County. I'm all about officer safety. But what point do we worry about the citizen safety here in Wicomico County? So then you have Jeff Merritt says a few more things, and then Shaney says a few things. But then Mike Lewis interjects what I was saying the whole time. He confirmed that it was basically a witch hunt for County Executive Joey Giordano. He said, what we want as citizens of Wicomico County is to vote yes for the amendment. That's what the whole meeting was about. I said this the night that it happened. I've been saying this for forever. This is what everything is about. Everything is directed because the county executive is doing the right thing. She's the only one that cared about transparency and keeping the community informed. And they hate that. They know the popularity of this page. They know that this page was going to appreciate what she did with keeping our community informed. Not just with Eastern Shore Undercover. It was offered to everybody. It was offered to WFC, WMDT, all of them. Anybody that falls within that criteria, she was offering to give them access to keep this community safe. to keep this community conformed. Shane then goes on to request the radio back. I don't know if the council ever sent that letter or not, but I gave the radio back on my own free will. And again, like I said, I don't want it. They can keep it. Cannon closed it out by getting his digs in and giving one last ditch effort to encourage people to vote against the county executive. So that was pretty much it. I know this has been a long video. It's been like 2 hours, over 2 hours. First and foremost, I think this was a way for the sheriff and the county council to just keep poking and prodding at the county executive. They said at least 10, 15 times in the council meeting that they had their little Shadow Hills peeps there to cheer them on and clap and inflate Mike's ego, and they want the people to know that Julie Giordano can't stay because she gets in their way. And she is not going to back down from these people. I'm going to tell you right now, they are in for the fight of their life. We've all seen her in the county council meetings, and I think she does a great job. She gets herself a little animated, but that's just the type of person she is. She's so emotionally driven to doing what's right for our community. And, ask some of the people over on the west side, ask some of the people that the liquor board, ask these people that actually mean something to this community, and they'll tell you, man, she is good for Wicomico County. But anyway, secondly, it was abundantly clear that Lewis was screaming, Earl Campbell can't stay. Earl Campbell's got to go. I'm going to censor him and shut him down. Don't you think it is ironic that he comes in there and complains about me banning people from a private business? Complains about me not allowing people to say whatever they want when they are negative or whatnot. But he is trying to ban the entire Wicomico County, all of the citizens, not some, not a few, not only the ones that can't play nice, but he's trying to ban all the citizens from hearing what happens in Wicomico County. Not 1, not 10, not 50, all 100,000 people here in Wicomico County. He is censoring that. That's censoring. Isn't that something? Isn't that crazy? I hope people realize that. Look, to all of my friends and followers, please, I hope you look at the bigger picture here. They know that Eastern Shore Undercover has grown into a very, very, very large platform. We have a lot of followers. We have a huge following. And I'm truly, unbelievably thankful for each and every one of you. Doesn't matter which platform you're watching this on or where you're seeing it or where you follow us at. I truly appreciate everything you've done for us. As a community, we will come together and we will beat this. 100% confident. Because we have grown so large and because we provide this community with information that is valuable to our community and it keeps our families safe and informed, and because we can't be bought or controlled, they now have to do everything they can humanly possible to shut us down. It has nothing to do with officer safety. It has nothing to do with citizens' privacy. Think about it. This has happened for the last 5 decades. Why is it now only a problem? We all know there is an election coming up in just a few months. Time is running out for them to get rid of me so they can get rid of the county executive. See, without me, they can put anything they want up there in a talking council meeting, and most people will see that and maybe believe it. But I'm here to debunk all that nonsense. We cannot allow this to happen. They're trying to censor me. They're trying to censor you. They don't want me telling you what is happening, and they want to control what you know. Without me, they have no worries. Unfortunately, news organizations like WBOCs and the WNBTs, those types of news media, they're not going to have time to detail the immediate calls like we do. We are unique in the fact that we provide an immediate alert notification system to your neighborhoods. Those big media organizations such as, like we said, WBOC, WMDT, they're great at covering articles once they find out about them. but they just don't have the time to sit around and the manpower to cover these events as they're happening in real time. That's what makes us unique. That is what makes us special. And that is why we need Eastern Shore Undercover in our community. I'm going to wrap this up. Look, I've had almost 2 full days of coverage, and it's going to be an interesting few months. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that, things are going to be the same, because they're not. I mean, unfortunately, I won't be able to provide the same level of coverage that we have for the last 4+ years. But I don't think it's as bad as, we originally thought. It's truly not. We're going to miss 10 or 15 calls here and there. But that doesn't change. Our story stays the same. This is not an issue with law enforcement. This is an issue mainly with the leaders in law enforcement in the community. So I just want everybody to know that. These law enforcement officers that are working street, they're good people. And, the national media may want to swerve you to one way or the other. Let's just stay focused. Let's support these law enforcement officers and what they do. And let's keep doing our thing. That's really all I got. They know that this community trusts us. They know this community relies on us, and my integrity and my honesty can't be debated. Most of all, they know that they will not win an election as long as Earl Campbell is running Eastern Shore Undercover. And that is a fact. And the words of Mikey, period. I'm going to expose those lies. I'm going to expose that misinformation. I'm going to make sure our community gets the right information to make an educated decision during election time. I am already aware that at least 2 people that will run for sheriff, possibly a third, and that's not including Mike Lewis. And I'm fully aware of several candidates have already reached out to us about the Wicomico County Council positions. If you want to change, you have to be that change. You have to make sure you're registered to vote, and must get people out in the office to vote. If you're working that day, tell your boss you got to take a break. Get out and vote. It's so important. This is probably the most important election that we've had ever since we've been up and running, for sure. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I know this is a rather long video, and you're definitely going to have to watch this in steps, 2 hours and almost 20 minutes. And it's long because I had to address a lot of bullet points. Don't forget, if you like this video, please do me a favor, click that little button below that says like. But most importantly, smash that subscribe button. It really helps me out. It helps the page out. Helps my videos get shown to more people. And again, thank you for your continued support of Eastern Shore Undercover. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.